BTL, coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Yes, he is back. Bradley Hallman, FLW Tour professional, is in studio. And Bradley, we've got a double dip of champions today.
Sounds like an exciting day we have.
All right, I got a phone call kind of late yesterday, not too late. And I tried to get Brandon on yesterday, but he was flying.
Okay.
After his massive victory on Lake Fork, he was in the air, so I had Garrett Paquette on, who was the other guy that surpassed the century mark, and great interview. It was really my first time to talk to Garrett and break down what he did at Lake Fork. So I got a phone call, got a text message from Geddes at Bass, and he said, hey, Brandon's good to go tomorrow. In the meantime, I already had John booked, the man that got it done on Chickamauga. Got his, fourth FLW Tour victory, I believe.
His third tour, fourth if you count the cup. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty big victory there.
Absolutely.
So a double dip of hardware today on the show, and we're going to go to Brandon here just in a few minutes. But I want to pick your brain really quick, and then we're going to go to Brandon. Situation is right now, I made a big deal on the show yesterday about telling everybody, hey, man, don't worry about Fort Gibson. It's up 15 feet. Who cares? That's the way it's a holding take, which it is.
It is.
All right. They dump a bunch of water in it from Grand. But now this latest round of rain that we had blow through last night, I mean, right here in Moore, we got like 4 inches.
It's flooded on the way over here. I thought I was going to get killed by oncomers that were hydroplaning.
So here's the deal. I actually made a phone call, and I believe they were going to go out of Taylor's Ferry North is where they were going to go out. It's flooded. And you have an enormous amount of experience on that body of water. When it's this high, we talk about the picnic table pattern and the outhouse pattern and all that and everything. But I think the situation is now with this wave of rain that came through last night and the wave that's coming through today, they may not be able to have it simply because they're not going to have a facility to have the tournament in.
It does get up over Taylor's Ferry. I mean, we've been there before in the morning and park, and when you come back in the evening for weigh-in, your trucks are almost underwater. That's how fast it comes up. Yeah.
So that event's supposed to take place next week. I don't know what they're going to do. I've reached out to them. Nobody really knows right now. I guess the question is there a body of water? Because everything in Oklahoma is blown out.
Right.
Except Grand. Mm-hmm. Grand is the only one that's not blown out, and it's up, and the water's in the willows, and they're going to absolutely smash them if anybody's fishing on Grand because of the water being up so high. The ramps are fine. That's a different story. Would they go to Grand? I have no idea. The only other lake that I can think of, and you may be able to help me out, that they might be able to go to is 10 Killer.
That's what I was going to say, 10 Killer.
Yeah. So who knows? We're just going to sit tight and wait and see what happens. Hopefully they will make a decision soon. But I cannot see them dropping the lake level down because that's what that lake is used for by the Corps. Agreed?
Yeah, 100%. A lot of times, as long as they can get somewhere facility-wise that they can get in and out of the water, we fished that lake 25 feet high before.
I know.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
They get places that they usually can't get to.
You just can't get to the fish.
Yeah. All right. So that is a developing story to see what's going to happen with the next stop on the Bassmaster Elite Series. So kind of a mystery there. All right. I want to get to our first guest. And as I mentioned, we're going to have John Cox on here in about 20, 30 minutes. But first, we're going to go to Brandon Cobb. And the interesting thing, obviously with 2 blue trophies, 2 wins on the Elite Series, his earnings this year so far have surpassed the $260,000 mark. Yeah. He's earned $250,000 this year already, and we're only 5 events into the season. A tremendous season so far. He only really had one bad event. He had, I think it was a 60th place finish or 61st, something like that, at Winyah Bay. But that could be, there's a reason. Because the week before, it was a back-to-back tournament. The week before, he won.
I'm wondering more about where he's going to go on vacation with all this money this offseason.
I'm sure he's going to be really, really smart with it. So let's see if I can get him queued up here real quick. Brandon, you there, man?
I'm here.
All right. Thanks for taking time out. Wow, dude, you are a busy, busy man.
It's been a busy month for sure, without a doubt.
Let's just yesterday I had Garrett on, and we talked a lot about fishing a crankbait on Lake Fork and how things kind of set up for him. Let's kind of go through the week just real quick. What was your practice like? And then how did you get so dialed in? And then obviously the 11-pounder and the 8-pounder that you caught on, what was it, Bassmaster Live when they were Skyping in was probably one of the most incredible Skype viewership, whatever you want to call it, that I've seen in the history that they've been doing this. So kind of set up the week. How was your practice? And then how did you get dialed in?
All right, so when we got there, the first morning we were staying in cabins on the lake, and we went to put our boat in at the cabin, and I saw shad spawning on the bank, like at the boat ramp. So pretty much when I saw that, I knew I wasn't sure if it was the only way to win, but the way if I was going to win, the way I was going to win was the shad spawn, because that's just what I like to do. And it took me it took a little while to figure out what the fish get on when the shad spawn there, because like around here, it's kind of hard to find the shad spawn, but when you find the shad spawn, there's fish there. Yeah. Well, it's not like that at Lake Fork. The shad kind of spawn everywhere, like the whole lake. And I realized that, and then I just started kind of running some different type of cover, and like I'd run some docks and some bushes and some bank grass, and then I finally ran into a big school one time on a point. And when I got up on that point, it was like it almost seemed like a ledge type school of fish, but they were actually up in 2 foot of water on the point feeding. I mean, it was hundreds of them. And so once I saw that kind of told me that some of the big groups of fish were doing that, and I basically spent the rest of practice doing it. And it was kind of as good as it looked by the last day on live, it really wasn't that consistent until that last day. It was like during practice and even the first 3 days of the tournament, I would hit them like one time a day. Like I would do the same thing all day and hit them once. But when I did, you'd catch somewhere between 25 and 35 pounds in 10 or 15 minutes.
Wow. I just, and you know what's weird is with what Garrett said on the show yesterday, he couldn't really do anything with the shad spawn, which kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it was just the way they were feeding in like windows. Like you could have done the right thing for 2 days of practice, and if you had ever hit one of those 10 to 15 minute windows, you wouldn't even known it worked. Brandon, that's just the way it was.
Brandon comes from the part of the country where it's a blueback deal, and I know from me coming from this part of the country, when I first started going out there and would set my boat down on some of those points in different places and then would push just with a trolling motor, and then they blow up in front of the boat. And after that happens 3 or 4 times, you start to think, being from Oklahoma, Texas, you're thinking, is my boat really pushing the bait up there for that to happen? That couldn't be the case.
Yeah.
But I noticed that Brandon actually made a comment. He picked up on that right off the bat, and that's something that, guys in Texas and Oklahoma, we're not thinking about. But he would be going down those flats, and then those fish would blow up. He's literally pushing those shad with his boat. Does that make sense? Onto some of those places and creating that feed. Is that correct? Is that how I read that, Brandon?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, in the mornings, the fish were just kind of up there and feeding a little randomly. But by the end of the day, the shad would kind of pull back off. And then when you pulled up, a lot of times they would come up schooling because I'd push the bait up. The one thing I never quite put my finger on exactly is I never could understand. I don't know if the fish were up there all day and not feeding until the bait ran up there, or if they actually went up there to feed, because when they weren't biting, it was like the desert. I mean, there was nothing. Like, you wouldn't get a bite, you wouldn't catch a little one, you wouldn't see bait, nothing. And so I still, even throughout the tournament, through the end of the week, I got my timing really good on when they were biting. But when they weren't biting, I have no idea where they were.
All right, now I'm going to make a comparison, and I've been somewhat vocal over the years about this situation. I was watching you when you were doing the Skype thing, and I think, what day was that? Was that day 2 or 3? when you caught the 8-pounder?
That was actually day one.
That was day one? All right. See, I've slept since then, okay? I have been somewhat critical because I refer to a lot of stuff from a basketball perspective. And there's no way that you would stick a cell phone or a camera right in front of somebody while they're shooting free throws, trying to make baskets, asking him, well, how are you going to play defense the next time down the floor? All right? And here you are in the thick of things trying to answer questions while you're battling, man. You're battling against one of the greatest fisheries in the U.S. and the other guys out there, and they're picking your brain for what you're doing and all that and everything. And I was just kind of like, huh. And then all of a sudden, you hook up with this 8-pounder. Explain to me what that was like, man.
Yeah, so like I'd hit that flurry and they Skyped me. And I'm like you, like they were biting. And I was like, oh man, this is not really a good time, you know. But they Skyped me, and luckily it was kind of getting towards the end of the flurry of the fish. And when that fish bit, I was so close to knocking the phone and everything out my marshal's hand, because I don't know if you saw my hook set. I had to actually like I usually wouldn't set the hook dead straight up with a swim bait, but I did not hit him. I kind of leaned over and did a weird hook set, but it worked out. It worked out because I had that fish really good. He was definitely not coming off.
It's one of the most epic moments that I've ever seen in all the live coverage. Now, do I still think it's cool? Do I still think it's neat, especially when a situation like that occurs? Absolutely. But at the same time, you know, you got the flip of that of, well, come on, this dude's trying, he's working, you know? You wouldn't stick a camera in front of, anyway, that's just me, folks. I could be totally wrong, but that's just my opinion, because you guys are busting your tails out there trying to catch fish. Just me. Just me. Oh, he went away.
Oh, no.
You still there, man?
I'm
We still got
All right, he's back. All right, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, dude, you surpassed the $260,000 mark in earnings. That's got to kind of blow you away, does it not? Or were you lined up, and did you think that things were going to line up to where, from a performance standpoint, you were going to have one of the best years you've ever had at any level in fishing to generate revenue?
Oh, no, man. You couldn't even – there's no way you could even imagine the year would go the way it has at this point. I mean, this year, at least earnings-wise, I've almost matched my FLW earnings in 4 years, I think, or 3 or something like that. So, no, you can't even begin to I mean, like when I looked at the schedule, yeah, there was a few tournaments where I expected, like, yeah, you know, I can probably get a good check in that one. I can get a top 10 and make a little bit of money. I would never have expected the way it's going those past months.
All right, you didn't have a whole lot of history, if any, on Fork, did you?
None. Never been there.
Wow.
Wow.
How cool is that, Bradley?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Very, very cool. All right, how do you think, and a couple of people on the instant feedback, David in Wisconsin wants to know, you're on a roll, Brandon. Can you pinpoint what has led to the vast majority of your success this year?
There's really no way to put an exact word to that, but one thing that I've noticed over the years, like I've got on a decent little roll a couple of times. I mean, this is definitely the best I've ever done so far, but it's confidence and like decision making. Like I notice when I'm doing well in tournaments, you can't just like make it happen. Like when you're doing bad, you can't just be like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. But it's one of those things, like when I decide to move a place, in the last couple tournaments, other than Winyah, I've never doubted my decision. Like when I've said, oh, I need to move, I've moved and known exactly where I was going to go. I haven't been riding down the lake. Like, I don't know where to go. And it's really just confidence in your decisions during the day. And I think that's when things are going well, that's what I've noticed, how my days go. All
right. What was one special thing about your win at Lake Fork?
I couldn't hear you.
What was one special thing about your win at Lake Fork?
Oh, man, the coolest thing about that win was, I mean, it was just the size of the fish. I mean, I caught my biggest bass, my 3 biggest bags ever, and my biggest cumulative weight ever. I mean, that's just, you can't forget that.
114 pounds, Bradley.
Yeah. How did you enjoy the Texas Fest? That's been going on for a long time. I remember the inaugural at Lake Fork whenever it was a team event, like 4 guys per team, and it was a big deal. What were your thoughts on the Texas Fest?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I really actually like the off day in the middle where we got to meet the fans and have like an expo and stuff. I actually fished Texas Fest I think rookie year on the tour. I finished in the top 15 and fished it when they took half from the tour and half from Bass, and I fished Ray Roberts. So I've been before, but it's like that expo is an awesome thing. Like it just really lets you get to meet all the fans. Like it was pretty cool. Some of the people that were following me on day 2, I got to meet at the expo, and then they were following me again on day 3, so I got to actually talk to them and meet them. It's pretty neat.
Very cool. All right, Bill Durham on the instant feedback has a question. He says, the fish on the point that you were catching on the top water, have you ever had a situation like that before?
Yeah, growing up around here, that's pretty, I mean, if the water temperature is over 65 degrees, we pretty much throw top water and they school. So, yeah, I've ran into that with the herring fish around here, but that was pretty cool to run into it with the fish up feeding on shad and thread fins and gizzard shad like that out there.
All right, we might as well ask you, have you received any updates about the Fort Gibson event?
I know nothing about it. I know my truck and boat is out at Fort Gibson, so I hope we fish it because I have to go back and get it anyway.
Good. Oh, so you flew out of Tulsa? Is that what you did? You drove up there and left your boat there?
I did. Yep. I just left it for a few days. It was probably, if I'd have hung out for a week, I'd have probably spent more money than flying home when I was bored just hanging around in Oklahoma.
Wow. All right. This might be a stupid question, but I want to know, from South Carolina, what is your experience on Guntersville? Have you fished Guntersville a ton?
Yeah, I fished it. I fished a college tournament or 2 on it, and I fished the tour, I think, in 17 we went, and I did pretty well then, but I've never fished it when, like, we're going in June this year, I've never fished it when it was hot, and it's most the only times I've been is like really, really pre-spawn, like February. All right. So I mean, I know the lake, how it lays out, but I don't have like year-round experience on it, I guess you'd say.
It would have to set up kind of well for what you like to do, though, wouldn't it?
It could and it couldn't. I mean, I just know those Tennessee River lakes. I really love fishing those lakes when they're not on ledges.
Okay.
So if it'll be a little late past all that, or if there's like Tennessee River, what people don't realize about that whole, like, I mean, Guntersville, Pickwick, all those lakes, they're the greatest ledge lakes in the world, but they have the best shallow bite ever. It's just you usually can't win because their own ledge is so good. So I definitely like it if it's a shallow game, but it's hard to say at this point what will be going on.
All right, how do you feel about going up north?
I always enjoy fishing up north. I don't really know much about it, but I've been done pretty well going up there in the past. Like check wise, I've never really top 10 determined over there up north or had a chance to win. But I really enjoy fishing up there. It's up in like those type lakes. The fish bite's so good that it's all about just finding a special area where you can catch them. Like it's not hard to catch fish. It's just catching a little bit bigger fish than everybody else. So it takes a little getting used to.
All right, Bradley, I think the only person to have done the feat of winning 3 Elite Series events in 1 year was Van Dam. I think he did it. I could be wrong. I don't know. My stat guy's not here. He's out on Table Rock fishing.
I'm trying to think of what year that would be. I definitely remember years that he won 2, but I don't
Did he
remember,
win 3?
I don't remember anybody ever winning 3.
Well, see, you might either tie or make history on your own there, Brandon, if you're able to get another W. And I think we asked you this last time. Did you take the check to the bank yet?
Nope, haven't yet. I'm going to go this afternoon probably.
Right. What happened last time?
Yeah, it did. I didn't get back till late yesterday, and I was so tired from flying and all that. So I actually don't have a truck either. My wife just went to ride horses and at the barn, and I don't have a truck, so I'm kind of stuck at home.
Well, I thought you won a truck. Did you not get to take the truck?
It's a certificate.
Oh, okay.
Can't ride the certificate.
Can't do that. All right, what happened when you won the first one when you went to the bank? Did they treat you well? Did you make, the customer of the month or anything?
I've got to be friends with all them, so they always give me a hard time when I come in. Like, oh, well, I guess it was a good week this week, and if I come in with a small check, they always tell me to do better next time. So they've got to know me and know what I do.
Wow. All right, dude. Well, just a fantastic season, and you got a shot, man. You got a shot at making history.
Absolutely.
And are they going to get you guys heavyweight belts? Did you ask that question?
It is going down. I read
Really?
it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Those are really, really cool, man.
Yeah, at the Classic, it's going to be like a presentation of them, is what it said. I didn't realize it was that late after the year, really, but yeah, at the Classic.
All right. Very cool. Those are really, really neat. Something to cherish on that. All right, man. I know you got a lot of stuff going on there, but just a tremendous season so far, and hopefully we'll get to see you at Fort Gibson. If not, we will see you sometime in the remainder of the year, man.
Definitely. I appreciate y'all having me on, and anytime you want to talk.
All right. Sounds good, man. Be careful, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
All right, see you.
All right. There you have it. Brandon Cobb having just an incredible year, Bradley.
Yeah, it's the Clemson thing. You think he's even got that Dabo look a little bit to him this morning? Did
Does
you
a little
notice that?
bit.
Little
Well,
bit
dude, if you had $260,000 in your bank account,
Yeah.
you might be daboing up too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know, man. I can't remember. I'm old. I thought Van Dam
Van
won.
Dam might have had 3, but I'm trying to think of what year.
But I
it would
can't
have been.
remember.
He went in that tear. It would have been somewhere around 09. The year that he won Gunnersville, right outside of that little pocket, he kind of kept that little point, sneaky little point to himself until the last day, and then just went off on everybody. He might have won 3 that year, but he would have had to have won 1 up north.
Yeah.
To have been 3.
So who has won?
Do you remember
2?
him winning an Elite Series event north of the Mason-Dixon?
I don't.
I don't either.
And Matt is all over that. I'm not into that. I have to look up and research a lot of the stats that I get. Matt knows that stuff off the top of his head.
I just don't remember him winning 3. But
All
if
right.
somebody
I could
did
be
it,
wrong.
it would be Kevin.
Yeah.
It would be Kevin.
It could be. The ironic thing is the dude had 100 pounds. 2 guys had over 100 pounds.
Just incredible weights. That's the first time
Yeah.
that's happened, I think, since 2013 that they've given away a century belt. So,
Yeah.
Congratulations to both those guys.
Yeah.
For that.
All right, man. We've got about 5-10 minutes before we're going to take a break, and then we're going to bring John in to talk about his win at Chickamauga. But I got to bring it up, man. Typically, we have you on to kind of break down what happened with you during your week on the FLW Tour, and probably something. I don't know if you want to talk about it. I don't know if you're mad. I don't know if you're upset. Have you moved on? It was very un-Hallman-like, the performance that you had.
So it's the reality of tour. And unlike these guys that we're interviewing right now that are on the highs of highs, the plane's on fire. There's a wing that's broken off. Everybody else is bailed out with their parachutes, and I'm trying to keep this sucker from hitting the ground nose first. And that's really where we're at. It's in Suckville, and it's a big pile of suck that's right in the middle of Suckville. And that's really where it's at right now. I mean, I don't even want to get into the details of it because there was nothing that I did opposite of what they're talking about, where every decision that you make is right and you feel like it's right. Every decision that I make seems to be 180 degrees the wrong direction, and there's no confidence in any decision that you do make. You second guess every one of them.
But doesn't everybody go through this, Brad?
Absolutely. A lot of guys do. I wouldn't say everybody. I don't know that Kevin's ever been down that road. If he
did. He had it was rare, but he did have that situation.
It's something that all fishermen go through.
He's going through it right now. Different game, different format.
Right. It's definitely something we all go through. None of us like it. Some of us go through it more than others. It's part of the game. It's part of the sport. It is a hard thing to get away from for whatever reason.
Yeah. And
I don't know why that is. Momentum is big in this sport, and it goes both ways. I think a lot of it's second guessing and just trusting your gut.
Did you have a good practice?
I really didn't. I really didn't. And what I'm doing is I'm buying into things that, not that I'm buying in, but you're settling for things in practice that you're like, all right, I can catch a few here and a few there. And really, that the potential to do really well is just not there. I fished primarily that last event. I practiced down lake for the majority of it. I'd spent some time on the bank and seen a few spawners and stuff, but it wasn't just lights out, and what ended up happening in that event was it was the upper end of that portion of that reservoir that was the deal, not the lower end. I got on some docks and got to messing with some shallow docks and wacky worming and some stuff and getting quite a few bites. With them spawning, I didn't really want to set on a lot of them just because, and I should have checked a couple more of them because the few that I did check were 4-pounder and 5-pounder, and you think, okay, well, there's more like that, even though there's a lot of smaller fish mixed in, but it just wasn't enough, and I really knew that going in, and it really showed itself after the first day. Second day of tournament, I went blind. I just went up the river. I mean, I came out, take off, and went left. I hadn't even seen that part of the lake.
Wow.
I just went fishing, and it was a little better. I had some opportunities that day to have a decent day, and it was obvious, just like what I'm talking about. You can see it.
Right.
I mean, quickly that this is a different animal up here than it was down lake.
Gotcha. Well, now you have a little bit of a break, right?
Yeah. Definitely got a break, and we've only got one event left. Unlike the Elite Series guys, still got a lot to go. But I don't really have much to lose. I've got a game plan. I know what I want to do when I go to Champlain. I know which direction I'm headed, and and I know what I'm going to do.
Does it begin with a T?
It probably does. T and ends with a G.
Yeah.
Ticonderoga and grass. That's going to be my game plan.
You've made that run before, haven't you?
I have never made that run.
Really?
I have practiced down there, and I always end up practicing somewhere else and finding something and then talking myself out of going. But that's not going to happen this time.
He's going.
I'm going.
He's going. A lot of guys actually, there's a little hotel that's down by.
So it's such a long
Road.
drive. What guys will do is even if they have a place to stay up at Plattsburgh, they'll go down and they'll stay in that hotel for a night or two down at Tide just to save time. Because what ends up happening for all of us and all the different events that go up there, we're always up there in the summertime, obviously, because it's so far north. And the daylight hours are so long. I mean, it gets daylight there at like 4:30 in the morning and gets dark at 10 o'clock at night, which creates extremely long practice days if you want to push it that hard.
Yeah.
So it leaves you about 3 hours to sleep. It's not much. I don't even know why we get a hotel room. We should just sleep at the ramp. But we do get hotel rooms there and sleep and stay down there just to avoid that hour drive each way on top of practicing that long.
I know there's a lot of people that have never experienced that body of water, and specifically that area of Champlain across the country. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been.
Absolutely, without a doubt. It is probably, I've always said this, the most beautiful lake that I think that I've been to in the country.
I agree, man. I agree. And no matter where you go in there, it's just gorgeous. There's fish everywhere.
There are fish everywhere.
And you can try and catch smallmouth. You can go to Thai and fish the grass. And I've told this story a zillion times. I'm not going to tell the story, but I am going to mention the water chestnuts at that lake are unbelievable. Yeah. It's like nothing else in the country to see those fish explode through those water chestnuts like a Polaris missile. Yeah. It's one of the most amazing trips that anybody could go on to be able to fish that body of water. All right. Well, you got some time. We made the announcement. You're going to have a little battle next week, and we'll get into that after we talk to John. Hopefully you can break out of the funk, and hopefully it's going to be fishable. We have several bodies of water that we were going to choose from, but now everything's blown out except one, so we really don't have a choice. We're going to stick you guys on Grand Lake and witness, hopefully, a clinic in flipping the willows.
Yeah, it should be fun. Hopefully it's not too awful high, because what happens is it gets too high, and it does the same thing it does at Gibson. It puts them so far back in there.
You can't get to them.
You can't get to a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to that. We will talk more about that, but we're going to take a break. Come back with John Cox, who surpassed, what do I have here in my notes? Let's see here.
Johnny
1.3 million in earnings.
Oh my God.
In not too many years.
Yeah. Just incredible.
It's pretty impressive. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back with John Cox. Everybody stay tuned right here on a Wednesday.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
I got my power pole down. sitting so still in the wind and the waves. Could even be a hurricane. I got my power pole down.
AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out, you know, how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO.
Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market out of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. It's Siglon PE x8. It's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4-strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm at Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday. Brad Hallman in studio. And we are ready to go to our second guest. You know, this is the second time, you tell me, I can't remember if Van Dam's ever won 2 or 3 in a season. But what I do know is I don't think there's ever been a media outlet that has had 2 weeks during the year where obviously you had all 3 tours going on at the same time, where we had all 3 winners of all 3 tours on the following week that they got the hardware. So continuing to make history here. By the way, I got it on my phone, a severe weather alert. Again. I mean, it just seems to be the norm here. All right, our next guest has over, as I mentioned, $1.2 million in earnings and is really, really having a good year, obviously leading the Angler of the Year race on the FLW side.
This guy we've got coming up is one of the most dominant anglers that I have ever competed against on any tour. This guy's he just keeps coming every week, every single week, no matter where we go. He comes and comes and comes.
Yeah, just a stud.
I know that this was a big win for him, and I know that we've got one event left, and I know he's got one big thing on his mind.
We'll ask him. All right, John, you there, man?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for taking time out. And, Bradley pretty much summed it up. Dude, you're just a machine.
Man,
Well, let's talk about it. I mean, what were your thoughts going into it? How did your practice go? And then when did you think that you were really, really dialed in?
Going into it, I mean, I love that lake, and I didn't. I knew I was going to try to sight fish some, and just fish a lot of stuff I caught them in the past, and practice went good. I mean, found a lot of big fish, found one really big one to start on and stuff, and it wasn't till I realized it was the same week that I won a boat there in a Fishermen National Championship. That I was like, oh wow, maybe this will work out this week. And man, it was just crazy. The first day I started on these two fish. There was one that was about 10 pounds, and and the other one was about 7 or 8 pounds. And they were waiting. I couldn't figure out what they were doing. They were staying so far off the bed. And as the water kept slowly coming up as the tournament went on. And every day I got there, that fish would get closer and closer to the bed. And then finally on that first day, she was actually up on the bed, and she was like laying on her side. It was so shallow. And, I wasn't able to catch her, but it just made me realize that a lot of these fish were trying to still spawn. They just were waiting on that water to come up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. I gotta ask, the last day and toward the end of the day, what was that like, John?
So the last day, like, I really didn't know what to think. Like it was everything was changing. Everything. The day 2, I sight fished. That was my smallest limit. It was like 17 something. I just small males that I caught, and. But day 3, that's when everything really changed. I knew we had a lot of storms coming in. The water was getting where you couldn't see anymore. Your visibility was gone. And so I started throwing my dirty jig swim jig with a max scent meaty chunk and just covering a ton of water to try to get on a pattern for the final day. And we did really good day 3, but started off day 4, I thought that was going to be the plan. And so I jumped around, throwing that jig everywhere, and it just was not working out at all. Like I caught so many 1.5 pound, 2 pound fish, and just the big fish weren't committing to it or chasing it or anything. So I was fighting not throwing that worm. I was kind of tired of throwing the general round, wacky rig. It's just a stick bait. I was hooking wacky rig, and I was throwing it at most of the beds and trees and just pretty much everything. But that bite was so good that every time I picked it up, even the last day, I would catch a good one, and then I'd pick the jig back up, and I'd be like, "Oh no, I'm gonna catch them on this jig," and then they wouldn't eat it, and and I'd have to go back to that worm, and I'd catch another good one, and I'd go back to the jig, and I'd, just covering a ton of water, and just couldn't get the jig to work. And finally, right at the end, I think I had about an hour left, and I ran to this fish. I fished the entire week. I wasn't able to catch it. I fished it every day. I probably spent a total of the 4 days. I probably spent at least 4 hours on this fish, and it wasn't a really big one. It was like a 4.5 or so. And I ran back to that fish, and I fired my general in there, and I got a bite. I was like, oh my gosh, it ate it. I set the hook. I lost it. I was like, oh gosh, this is just, the day's not going well. Threw back in there, same thing. He ate it again. I missed him again. And the third time I was like, well, maybe third time's the charm. Threw it in there, and I was just letting it sit. I wasn't moving it. And my camera guy said, hey, the live show's over with. And as soon as he said that, I saw my line jump. And I set the hook and caught that fish, and it was like 4.25 or something. And it made me feel like, okay, this is where everything's going to change now. Like, that was the luck we needed to move forward. To maybe, I had 2 more 2-pounders I wanted to get rid of, and I jumped around. I couldn't get nothing going again, and then something was just like, go to the trees. And I was just like, and like I thought about it, and I completely forgot about these 2 trees that I've caught. When I won the Open there last time, I caught a 9 off this tree. I've caught multiple 4-pounders off the same tree, and it's always been really good to me. And I almost forgot to fish them this tournament. So I ran up the river. I got to them. I had about 10 minutes. I went to the first tree that the last fish I caught off was a 9-pounder. Skipped my general to it, and the line jumped. And I could see this fish. The fish, I knew it was a big one because when it was leaving the tree, you could see her line going side to side. Like, you could tell it was a great big one leaving the tree. And I was almost scared to set the hook on it because, I got it on 10-pound fire line with a 10-pound 100% fluorocarbon leader. And, so, I knew, the fight was going to be on. And I pulled it tight on that fish, and it took off. Like, it just took off to the river channel and come off. And I was just like, oh, my gosh, I just lost the tournament. And, I was so upset. And then I went to the next tree. That was just down from it about 100 yards, and I threw in there, and I caught a 4-pounder, and I was like, oh my gosh! I called a 2-pounder. I had 3 minutes left, so I jumped back on plane. I run right back to that tree. I lost that big one. I skipped my general in there, and I'm letting it sink, and I'm just letting it sit there, and I look, and I'm like, I know I got maybe 2 minutes at this point, and my line jumps, and I catch that 4-pounder at the end, and I mean, it was just. I didn't know I won the tournament, but the feeling was so overwhelming running in. I was tearing up, and camera guy was trying to talk to me, and I just couldn't. I lost it, because it was such a amazing last 10 minutes and so stressful, and it just felt like I won at that point.
Ever experienced anything like that before?
No, I mean when winning the Cup was amazing and stuff, and all these others, but I don't think anything's ever been so last minute. Yeah. And not being on not that I wasn't on anything for the tournament, but I never caught 2 fish in the same spot. So I never really had a a lot of the guys were fishing the same bunch of trees and same kind of stuff, and I just had to move around to catch my 5 every day. So it was really, it was just an awesome tournament. I'll never forget this one for sure.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to go to the locker room now, Bradley. This is something that I ask my team, all right, when they win, when they lose, it just depends on the situation. And I'm going to ask John this, all right? There's 3 questions. The first question is, even with the victory and the big fat check and the hardware, all right, what did you do right this week?
I stayed in it the whole time, Okay. I stayed focused. I mean, that day that storm came in, and I knew it started raining, but I never even heard the lightning or saw the lightning until I caught one of those big fish, and then I went to put it in the light well, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's storming so bad!" Was so focused. And my camera guy's like, "Yeah, everybody else is sitting under a dock right now," and it was just, I just never quit all the way. I was in the zone, I guess, or whatever it is.
All right, even with the victory, what did you do wrong?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have changed anything. I mean, I guess the only thing I did wrong was I missed that giant one at the end, but I don't know. I mean, you can't catch them all, I guess.
All right. And then the last question that I ask my players is, what did you learn from this victory?
I learned this from this one. I mean, you fish till the last second. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, I was just at Smith Lake the week before this one for the Bass
Open.
Central Open, yeah. And every day I came in, I culled 2 huge culls at the end of the day, and upgraded by 2 pounds in the last 10 minutes every day. So that's what made me feel, even when I was at this place, I mean at Chick, I realized this could come down to the last 10 minutes, and that's just how it's been the last 2 weeks. It's just been it's been pretty amazing.
All right, that's really cool. All right, on the instant feedback, David in Wisconsin wants to know, what would be more important to you, the Angler of the Year title or another Cup win?
Definitely I would love to win the AOY title. But another cup would pay 3 of those, so I'll go with the cup.
He wants the jack right there. The money's important.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, Bradley, you got anything for John?
Well, that last question there was kind of what I was going to get at. Mostly when we interview guys after a win, it's a career achievement, which this is obviously too.
Right.
But for a guy like you, it's a little different because it's your 3rd FLW Tour win, and you are also a Cup champion. You only have one thing missing from your resume right now, and we all know you're capable of it. So I was kind of wondering how that's really weighing on your mind. You've got 3 or 4 guys there with you that are all at the top and had great years, and we're headed to Champlain. So what are kind of your thoughts on that?
I want to win it, and more than anything, I mean, it's been so close, and then when you're so close and you lose AOY, it's like losing all 7 of those tournaments over again. So it's really hard to, and it's stressful. But I mean, having it on Champlain, I wouldn't pick anywhere else to have the finale at. And and that, like the last time Dudley won, he won the tournament and won AOI going into it, and that would just hopefully it's my turn to do that.
I know, Bradley, you've done it. My next question, you've done it. John, how was day 5? Was that cool? Did you like doing that?
Oh yeah. Day 5 was awesome. It was honestly like I was kind of nervous because me and Kyle were fishing, and we couldn't catch anything. And I was like, man, what? I was like, I just caught 50 of them out here yesterday, just keepers. Like should be able to catch them. And the boys in the camera boat and then Benji that travels with me, they're over there just casting out in the middle, just catching them, and we didn't catch anything.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So, hey, wow. A couple people on the instant feedback want to know, what do you think the lake Chickamauga, what do you think it's like this week and maybe a week from now?
Towards the end of the tournament, I felt like there was still some fish going to come to the bank, because a lot of them seemed like there was a lot of pre-spawn stuff going on. But now that the water's stable, I mean, they might. I got a feeling we're going to get a good push right here in the next few days of the last bit of spawners to come in, and I think they're going to do their thing, and then they're going to head out. And I think I got a feeling it's going to some of the shallower ledges and some of the deeper stuff are really going to load up here in the next couple weeks, and that bite's going to be on fire.
All right. John, you got some time off before Champlain. What are you going to do?
Oh man, I'm going back to chicken 2 weeks for the open. I'm fishing as much as I can. I'm just trying to, after winning the cup, it was great and stuff. And in the following season, I had a shot to win at Harris Chain, and I kind of blew it. And then that's been kind of the last couple of years I haven't been able to close any of them, so I'm just trying to fish as much as I can to try to get back going again.
All right.
No.
All right. It's good to be John Cox right now, isn't it, Bradley?
Yeah, Johnny Cox.
All right, John, we're gonna let you go, man. But congrats, and just wish you all the best up at Champlain, and big event for you. I mean, it's not like you haven't been at big events, but it couldn't be on a better lake. I love Champlain, and I think you do too.
Oh yeah, I love that place. I mean, it's so you have variety. You can do pretty much whatever you want, and you can a turn of a switch, you can go switch from smallmouth to largemouth or vice versa, and that's always fun.
All right, man. Yeah. Well, take care. Best of luck to you. Good luck at Chick. I don't know if you really need it, but
I'll need it. I'll need it for sure.
All right, man.
Good luck, John.
Thanks for taking time out. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'll see you in a month, Bradley.
Sounds good.
All right, see you. There you have it, John Cox. And yeah, 2 guys on the show today.
Oh, 2 incredible fishermen. Yeah,
pretty incredible seasons too, Bradley.
Yeah, both of them just killing it. Absolutely, 110%.
All right, what are you going to do? We mentioned it. We kind of teased it. Next Tuesday, right here on BassZone.com, we're going to have Bradley Hallman versus Andrew Upshaw on the only lake in Oklahoma that you can really fish on right now because of all the water. And hopefully it will stay or remain fishable to where we can pull that off on Tuesday. You're going to go one-on-one live. We're featuring two guys very familiar with that body of water. And Andrew with a trophy this year and a nice fat check.
Yeah, he does.
And going to be hopefully very, very entertained. And that should build your confidence up there a little bit, Bradley.
Well, I would love to go to Grand and play with Andrew there. He lives closer to the lake than I do. So, but I don't think he spent as much time there. He is truly a Texan. But we're going to have a good time with it. It'll be fun. I just hope the lake's not completely blown out. Yep. I
mentioned it. A lot of the Oklahoma lakes, right now the spawn was kind of late, and not just in Oklahoma, but a lot of these lakes in the Midwest. Everything was behind, and now you have this massive quantity of precip coming in, just dumping tons of water into these bodies of water. How is that going to affect the spawn?
Well, they like the high water, and they don't mind the mud. I mean, they just go, like I said, they get to where we can't get to them, and they go so far up in the hill, which is way back in the woods. It kind of has that Rayburn. You know how Rayburn was in the first FLW Tour event. Lots of guys saw aerial photos and pictures of that, where it's just an ocean back into the woods. Those fish are still looking for a foot of water, and they go to a foot, but it's so far back there. And it's a needle in a haystack. I've talked about this before when lakes get high, especially here in the Midwest, the way our lakes are built. When it gets really high, you're really looking for steeper banks because you've got to be able to get to the bank. When it's just a foot or two high, you want the flatter, shallower pockets, that's where they're going to spawn and set up, and that's those outside bushes and trees and stuff. But when it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 feet, you've got a really big problem of just trying to find somewhere you can get to the bank that they want to spawn on.
Yeah, it's good for the spawn, though, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great for the spawn.
The thing that can be bad for it, the only thing that's bad for it is that they spawn up there and then the water recedes too quickly and then leaves their beds dry before those eggs have time to hatch. And I think that's some of the stuff that may have happened at Rayburn this year.
Probably going to happen at Fort Gibson, the way that they fluctuate that level.
It's happened at Fort Gibson every single year since I've been alive.
Do you remember, and we're kind of getting off base here, we're running out of time, but do you remember when that used to be one of the best topwater lakes in this area? I mean, Missouri, Oklahoma, Arkansas, it didn't matter. There was some characteristic about that body of water that you could throw a topwater bait all day long.
Yeah, they love it. They did, and there's still a lot to that. They're still there. Yeah. It's just how flat it is and shallow it is. A lot of those places, even though it seems like it's offshore ways, it's still only 1.5 feet, 2 foot deep. And just the taper of that flat, I mean, that's what you have to get topwater bites when the water has color to it, like Fort Gibson does. Yeah, is you've got to have a lot of shallow flats because the bait, if this is the fish and the bait's right here above his head that far, he obviously knows it's there. Yeah, you get on up to the ceiling, which would only be 3 or 4 feet, 5 feet, they don't even know it's there. But that lake, they live shallow, and there's a lot of shallow flats for them to relate to that top water.
All right, well, hopefully we will hear soon from Bass about what the verdict is going to be, whether or not they're going to have it next week at Fort Gibson.
I don't know. They had one at the river scheduled one year, and it got canceled for flood, and they moved us to Fort Gibson. So I don't know what they do with this.
I think the only option is, if they're going to try and move it, is they could do two things. And obviously, folks, we've talked about this. Money is involved.
Absolutely.
You have companies that have paid a sponsorship fee to have the event here in Oklahoma. They could have it at Tin Killer, but I don't know, facility-wise. You know how Chicken Creek floods when it gets high. I haven't looked to see what the lake level.
I would bet that if Taylor Ferry North is underwater and unusable, you're probably going to see a postpone and replacement later in the year and come back at a different time.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
All right, we'll wait and see. I think there's about a 0.05% chance that they would go to Grand.
Yeah,
agreed?
I don't think they're going anywhere else.
Yeah. All right, man, good stuff. All right, tomorrow, Dean Rojas is going to be on, talk about his win on Smith Lake, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff with Dean. Dean hasn't been on the show for quite some time now. His first victory in, I believe, 8 years.
Really?
I think his last victory at Toledo Bend was in 2011.
I was part of that.
Yeah. Once again, my stat guy's not here, but I think it was 2011.
It was 2011.
All right. Good job, Mark. How about that? He wasn't even here. We're going to have Dean on and discuss a lot of the technique and a lot of the strategy that is involved with Major League Fishing. I was analyzing his day because I watched a bunch of it. I was going between all three. And the one thing that I've noticed about these guys, not just Dean, is they are developing a method and a technique to land these fish. In other words, the swing. You watch these guys and they are developing a technique on how to swing the fish in the boat to where, number one, they don't get a penalty, but number two, they don't lose the fish, and number three, they put themselves in a quick release situation to where they can quickly get the fish released and get it weighed. Boom, they're back. Because time is it's a huge factor. So you watch, Bradley. You watch how these guys start to land these 2 and
that's very interesting.
2 3-pounders. I could be wrong, but that's just something that I picked up on.
I think that's an awesome that you've noticed that.
Yeah.
I said from the beginning when they started, if 10 years from now they're playing the same game, you go back and look at how they played it the first year, and all those guys will look back at it and go, oh, that was wrong, that was wrong, that was wrong, because there's so many things to change to bring yourself to a higher level. Does that make sense? To be more consistent, whether it's the way you target or the way that you play the chess game or the way that you're landing fish. I mean, there's lots of things there that can change.
Yeah, so we'll get into that with Dean tomorrow. I do believe so far, up to this time, it's about quantity, not quality. Do you agree with that statement?
100%.
I mean, you see guys with 8, 9, 10 spinning rods on the boat, and they're all about going out and catching as many as they can.
The strategies have changed. They're actually fishing areas that they would not fish in the old setting.
Yeah.
And for those guys. So that's what I mean. Things are changing.
Yeah.
The strategies and the way that they're going about the game is changing.
All right, so we'll get into Dean with that. And then trying to think. Because we had Brandon Cobb on, there was something. I had this several emails from viewers that I sent on the show yesterday that we were going to get to. I was going to do that at the first part of the show, but since Brandon made contact with me and we were able to get him on, we'll try and get to those.
Awesome.
A little bit of surprise tomorrow with what we have going on there. All right, final thoughts today, Bradley.
Just a whirlwind of a day. I'm going to have 2 champions on at the same time, finishing up the week with 3 tomorrow. It's pretty incredible.
Good stuff, man. Thank you, as always, for taking part in the show. It is very, very tough to fly solo on this. I'm missing Matthew. By the way, I did talk to him. He's catching them a little bit.
Awesome.
But I think everybody else is, too. All right, everybody. Dean Rojas tomorrow. Make sure if you're listening to us on iTunes, you give us a review and rate us. Good, bad, evil, nice, heavenly, sour, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. All right, everybody. Be safe. We're out of here.